Okay, so we're getting started. Thank you for attending this presentation. And I'll bring up the slide. Okay, you can see that online and you can see that on the screen.
Yeah.
And I've called this From All Thoughts Everywhere, which FATE is an acronym for that. And what I intend to do is turn reality inside out. The reality encompasses the good, the bad, the ugly, but it is a reflection of collective thought. And that's why I've called it From All Thoughts Everywhere. Question I can ask from that, would you consider that beliefs do not have to be based on fact? You can just choose your beliefs and the facts will follow suit. Now, that's probably the other way around to what most people think, but I'll see if I can bring some ideology behind that and see if you can agree a little bit more. But some of you probably already agree. Choose the facts you want to believe in, and they will happen, right? And that can happen on an individual level, but it's much more powerful on the collective level. Yeah. A quote that I've put out many times before is, believe you are at the hands of fate and you surely will be. A fate manufactured continuously by you. It will sweep and carry you along if you let it or believe that it can. That's how powerful we are. That's how powerful our thoughts, especially our collective thoughts, obviously, are creating reality. I will be giving examples.
Okay.
Yeah. So like if you like the movie The Matrix, if you believe it, it's going to hurt, right? If you believe what's happening out there, it hurts, right? Or if you take it seriously. You can move to a state of being where you don't have to take it seriously and it falls away, right? And I think that's what The Matrix movie is generally about. Yeah, last night we played this movie, we reviewed it, and if people are interested, I'll replay it maybe tomorrow night or some other night. It's a story where this guy has given away $1 billion empire to pursue his dream. The outcome of that dream is very dramatic. It's very powerful. Yeah, he changed not only America but the world.
And that was like an ice cream empire.
That's right.
It was. That's correct.
Yeah. What's his name?
Baskin Robbins.
Yeah.
Baskin Robbins was the empire that was built.
He's the
right?
Robbins.
He's one of the Robbins. Yeah.
It's America.
His father got really crook or something because of.
Well, he ended up passing away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had too much.
He did. All the free ice cream available.
And this guy actually wrote the book A Diet for a New America. Yeah, and that's quite a famous book, right? And it's worth watching the whole movie. But anyway, let's see what happens. I don't know if people are going to be coming along to that. Now, in order for this talk not to be too airy-fairy, the topic tonight, but if I go to the poster, and what I've said here is, congratulations, mankind. You're actually exceeding expectations, but don't relax yet. The indicators that we're doing quite well is we didn't have Armageddon. That was going to happen in the early 1990s. I've done a separate presentation focusing on that, and I've got possibly close to a dozen indicators showing that that's when it was going to happen, and it didn't. It started with the 1987 harmonic convergence, which I remember, and that led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. We didn't have to go to war, and everything changed from there. And almost immediately, all this fantastic information came from the ethers, let's call it. And I'll be presenting some of that as we go along as well. Okay, so no Armageddon, no nuclear war. We haven't had it, even though there's been a lot of scare about that. And no World War III. And if I get time tonight, I will show you there cannot be a World War III.
You're talking about kinetic war, though.
Well, whatever it is, right?
Are we in a war right now?
I'm saying that they're trying very hard to start World War III because they know they're on the losing side, right? And so by starting a war, that will not just the fear element, it'll bring power back. We start blowing each other up. Right? It's not going to happen, right? Our DNA has been changed. It's been upgraded to war no more, so it can't happen, right? Right. So where do I get the authority for that? Well, I'll try and get to that point tonight, but I don't know if I'll have enough time. I might do another presentation and fill up the room next time. Well, if we can't even live together on this planet, then we probably deserve to go down the path of Armageddon and catastrophe.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, we can't even tolerate people with a different color skin. That's how ridiculous it is, right? And, you know, these benevolent beings from outer space, they've got different characteristics to us. So how are we going to tolerate them? That's why they're not revealing themselves, right? Because they're saying we're just too violent, we're just too dangerous. But things are changing, right? You can't relax yet because it's there's still a lot of work to be done to bring us back to let's say golden age. Anyway, okay, yeah, the population agendas have also been a dismal failure. It only affected a tiny percentage of the population compared to the plans of doing away with hundreds of millions of people around the world. It didn't happen, and so that's another pointer, right? If you want the statistics on that, you go to the Deagle website, the military hardware website, where they were saying that Australia's population was going to be almost half of what it is now. And the US population was going to be down to 30%. You know, that's a couple of 100 million people, right? That's what they planned. And it's been a dismal failure, right? There was a small number of people that died, and we can actually honour those people because they're showing us the way. They're showing us that this is not a good direction to go. Right?
But isn't it like 2030 agenda though? We haven't stopped yet. Like it's still.
Well, we're talking about. I was talking about the lockdown and the COVID pandemic, and it was a dismal failure, right?
But they had 10 years of a plan though.
Oh, look, they've been doing other. What do they call it? Pandemics over the decades, and they've always been a failure, and this one was no exception. Poverty is far less compared to the horrors of the 20th century and all the previous centuries as well. Poverty is being almost eliminated in the world. You may not realise it, but it is happening. Okay, I've got some statistics on this, right? And that's why I'm saying this talk turns reality inside out. Most of the perception of the people in society have got it the wrong way around. And the question I'm asking here is, like the Matrix, is reality a simulation? Is it material, physical, or mental, spiritual? And a bit of addendum to that is the world is actually in far better shape than most imagine. The manipulative tools of authority and taxation, and if you haven't noticed, taxation is rapidly approaching 100%. I can give you the calculations on that, and you would be amazed what they're doing with taxation. And that will fall away once the population realise it is not necessary. And we might go down the track, we will go down the track of restoring a people's bank. We destroyed the people's bank in Australia decades ago, and it's about time we brought it back. Because when you have a people's bank, you can fund massive infrastructure without cost, without taxation, without overseas loans. And that changes the whole paradigm, right? I've given talks on this before. It doesn't seem to be getting through. But anyway, you don't even need gold because the infrastructure you build from that becomes your gold standard. Can you see what I mean? You know, a lot of people say you've got to have gold, you know, to have a standard. But if you've got lots of infrastructure, why do you need the gold?
Aren't they working towards a People's Bank at the moment, George?
The people,
A People's Bank?
they've been
Like they
trying
used
to
to
get
have.
that back for
Yeah,
decades, and
absolutely.
it's happening, right?
Yes.
Be patient, and we're still working on
When
it.
was their last, a People's Bank, what you said decades, like when?
The Commonwealth Bank,
Oh, right.
that used to be the People's Bank,
Yeah.
and then they sold it. Okay,
Now
so
it's-
that'll be restoring a People's Bank for the good of all, funding massive infrastructure. An example of that is to green the desert, right? We have vast resources of rain which pours into the sea, and it can be turned around towards Central Australia. And an example of that is the Snowy River scheme. They actually irrigated an area larger than Victoria with that scheme, but it takes a lot of money, right? But if you have a People's Bank, you don't need taxes to do it. Anyway, let's move on. That was another topic I've covered years ago.
Got to bring it back.
Yeah, the dismal failure of wind and solar is just an excuse to convince us to go nuclear. And once you take that step, you cannot go back. You'll be stuck with it. You'll be stuck with the waste, the expense. I'm saying it benefits corporations and not people. Now, what's interesting is just the other day, what's that doing there? Just some of my credentials. I'm actually an electronics engineer before I switched over to what I've been doing here for 20 years. And one of my little home projects was to generate power from the creek. And I did all the calculations, I did the design, and I constructed a micro hydro system which generated power for most of the home for about 7 years. Then I ran out of time to work on it. But what I'm saying here is the calculations you have to do for a micro hydro are similar to the calculations that you have to do for a nuclear power station, right? It's just different size, okay? And so I've got some credentials in that area, right? And I outsmarted the artificial intelligence as well, okay? All right, that's what that's doing there. Anyway, just the other day, to back everything that I've said so far, I was loaned this book. He lent me this book, which he only just came across the other day. So maybe there's a synchronicity there. And it's called Factfulness, written by Dr. Hans Rosling. And maybe you haven't heard of Hans Rosling, but he was one of my heroes. Maybe 15 years ago, I was putting out his information showing that we do not have an overpopulation problem, right? There was scares from the 1960s, all fear-based, showing that the population's just going to keep going up and up exponentially. It's not, right? It's actually flattening out, and that's because once people get more and more educated and poverty reduces, they don't have to have so many babies, right? You don't have to have a big family in order to look after you in your old age, right? And what happens is women have stopped having big families. Up until the 1960s, they were still doing it. We're talking about 8, 9, 10, 12 children.
What happened, George?
I just explained it to you.
Okay.
Right? It's down to about 2 in the more affluent countries. And so the population is going down. Right? It is, overall, it's still going up, but it will flatten out. Yeah, there's a lot of factors, right? So Hans Rosling showed us that scenario, and it agrees with the study groups that we were running back in the year 2000. Well, the premise of the study material that we were working with was that there is enough for everyone, right? But there are people in the world that want to control the world, and they use fear and insufficiency to try and control the world. They say there's not enough. And I've had this conversation with so many people over the years, and they're in despair. They come to me and they say, "Oh, there's just too many people in the world."
Yeah, 'cause
And
it's
I
like
look at them and straight in the eye and I say, "Well, who would you like to get rid of first?"
Yeah.
Right? And that usually shuts them up. Right? Some of them continue to argue. Some of them continue to argue, and I'm thinking, well, okay, well, I'll just leave you to your beliefs, right? But the belief in insufficiency and overpopulation is just an excuse for genocide. Don't go there.
Didn't Bill Gates say that? Is it Bill Gates?
What's interesting is this book is endorsed by Bill Gates on the front and Melinda Gates on the back. They love this book.
Of course they did. They said, well, I will.
No, they actually love this book, and I've just got something to say on that.
That's very confusing.
Just consider that relying on facts is actually old paradigm, and yet this is about facts, right? Even this book is old paradigm, right? It's outdated and was only published a few years ago, as far as I'm concerned, anyway, right? Who am I? Rosling is very favourable on the idea of immunisation and vaccinations, and possibly the Gates Foundation picked that up and said, "Oh, we're going to vaccinate the world," right? They've gone too far, right? If you have a look at the Australian website on the vaccination mandate on children, it's horrific, right? It's horrible what they're doing to children. You might even say that Bill and Melinda were trying to do good to the world, right? But they've gone overboard, right? And they use this information to back it up. It's just a big mistake.
Stretching the friendship
And in fact, this book talks about overdramatic worldviews. And even the book, as far as I'm concerned, is overdramatic. Okay. Rosling also went along with the idea of global warming, man-made global warming due to carbon and all this. It's being shown more and more now that that's not true. He did reject Al Gore's fear-based climate alarmism.
So this factfulness is kind of related a bit to these fact checkers. He must be related to some of these fact checkers.
Well, Al Gore was using fear, right? He wanted Rosling to publish stuff based on fear, and Rosling said, "No, there's no way I'm going to do that because it's not true." Right? So, it's a two-edged sword. Rosling's got some great stuff, but he's also falling behind. His old paradigm, from what I can tell. Right? The premise of vaccinations is actually accurate. It does work. It almost eliminates certain killer diseases, but when you mix up vaccinations and a cocktail, which is what they tried to do, and then you had the coronavirus pandemic idea, and that's been discredited big time now. But they're still trying to scare the population with more pandemics. It's just insane. Anyway, what I wanted to do was share just a couple of pages out of this book where Rosling is showing the changes that are occurring over many decades, over a couple of centuries in some cases. Like legal slavery has fallen to virtually zero. Oil spills, almost zero. Solar panels, almost zero cost to what they used to cost, right? When I was studying them in the electronics engineering, oh boy, they were expensive. But I remember doing a project on how they're going to come right down in price to almost nothing. Children dying has gone from 44% in 1800 to about 4% in the year 2000. Battle deaths, it's almost zero now. Okay. Plane crash deaths, almost zero. Child labour has almost disappeared. Death from disaster, it's disappearing. Yeah, that's another point. A lot of people say, oh, look at all the disasters around the world. Well, it's actually the other way around. They're almost disappearing. The world is getting to be a better place. We're heading towards a golden age. That's the conclusion I can make from that. Nuclear arms are going down. Smallpox is almost eliminated. Hunger is going down dramatically. And on the next page, he's got good things increasing, right? And it's all the other way, new movies. Well, it's bad. Yeah. Lots of protected nature, women's right to vote. What a change that's been. Literacy has gone up dramatically. Even girls in school has gone up a lot.
This is worldwide, yeah?
This is worldwide, yeah. Anyway, the indicators are good. That's what I was trying to get across on the idea of responsible reporting, and that includes social media, all your Facebook, all your Telegrams, your WhatsApp, and all that. There's a commentary which you might find interesting, and that is, after politicians, you have the problem of journalists and reporters. We are greatly alarmed that most of them seek only sensationalism. When I look at social media, it's a lot of sensationalist stuff. Even our own Magpie blog, our own Telegram channel.
It was just a marketing strategy.
Well, you can use those tools in a positive way, and they are being used in a positive way. But I see a lot of negativity, and that doesn't help, because the negativity is actually what you're manifesting, right? Try sticking to positive subjects. You can acknowledge.
Bad guys, aren't it?
I'm saying there's an over dramatization of a lot of things that are happening around the world, which probably keeps us there. Okay. If I go further down with this quote, your television stations too screen more and more scenes of violence. If those responsible were obliged to study psychology before being able to undertake such grave responsibilities, then a step in the right direction may have been taken. But your reporters seem to seek and even prey on the scenes of violence, murder, tragedy, and disaster, and we are sickened by their behaviour. That comes from Thiuba. I've said here, source to be revealed later. Yeah, but just think about it. Every time you get on social media, you are a reporter, and I'm asking you to be more responsible with some of the garbage you're putting on there. Okay, well, I'll just share with you some of my background. It's engineering, it's physics, it's quantum physics to some extent, and also metaphysics. So I've got a unique angle on a lot of topics, and that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm not necessarily pro Assange. I'm neither anti or pro, right? But what I observed was a lot of people were supporting him, and I was saying to them, I put this out on social media to see if I can get a response, and I don't know if it went viral or not. And if you really want Julian Assange home, then the most powerful way to do that is to actually visualize him home in advance. And if you have the collective doing that, that will bring him home. The universe is not material, physical, but it's mental, spiritual. That's the most important element in this awakening that's happening right now. And hardly anybody's there. Right? That's my observation anyway. Yeah, it requires collective mass, and all you have to do is imagine the great celebration already happening. Well, maybe enough people did focus that way, and he's now home, but other people are saying he was a plant anyway. We won't go into that. Now, you know what this song is? Material Girl, one of the most powerful songs of this age, and what I'd like to say about that, she got it wrong.
But we all know that.
Yeah, no, we don't all know that. People still think we live in a material world, and we do, right? We do. It is material, but however, if you look at it closely, it's not. Oh, I'll just show you this little poster. And Julian Assange gives private information on corporations and government to you for free, and the media calls me a criminal. And of course, Zuckerberg from Facebook, I give your private information to corporates and governments for money, and the media called me the man of the year. Yeah, it's an interesting one, that one. So that's why I'm bringing spectacular examples of expanding on limitless clean energy in the presentation tonight. And here I've got a small collection of some of the presentations I've done, and they're on YouTube, right? The one down, oh, let's go to the top. The top one is talking about taxation. It's collective belief. It's not necessary, right? If we change the way we operate, the People's Bank and a barter system, and maybe, you might want to donate 10% to the common good, right? Or something like that. But the way it's going, it's heading towards 100%. And it's quite dangerous. A lot of people are reacting to that now. And I expand on that topic in other presentations. This one here is spiritual science. That's just a 3-minute presentation, and it's mind-blowing. The information I'm sharing there is mind-blowing about where we can go. But you have to put your beliefs aside, right? Because beliefs actually limit you, right? In order to become who you are, your full potential, you have to get rid of that. And then I've got a long presentation on that, which I did late last year, Spiritual Science 2 on collective belief and how it manifests one's reality. And towards the end of that, I showed that that scripture actually declares us as tax exempt, right? And it actually talks about it in the Bible, that Jesus says the sons are exempt. The question you have to ask is, who are the sons? Anyway, I've analysed that on that video. This one, second from the bottom, is actually a collection from a movie called 2012 Crossing Over. Most of that movie was made here, and it ended up having millions of hits around the world. And the message that I've got in that one is consistent with the message I'm presenting now. Right, so this journey goes back a long, long way. It's not just 20 years. It's actually 40 years, right? And it's frustrating, okay?
You're ahead of your time, George.
Sorry? Well, I don't know. I'm just sharing what I know, right? The one on the bottom is very pertinent to what's happening tonight. Virtually limitless clean energy, 3 incredible sources. If you get a chance, just watch this 3-minute presentation and it'll tell you what those 3 sources are.
What is it called?
Virtually limitless clean energy, 3 incredible sources. It's on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Is it hydrogen, 0 point energy? Is it 0 point energy, hydrogen?
No, it's not 0 point energy.
Hydrogen.
I haven't got hydrogen in that one. Hydrogen, I'm going to focus on further down here, right? And there's a spectacular result from hydrogen, right? You'll be amazed. I was, right? Okay, let's keep going. So what I'm saying is, if existence is truly mental, and I'm saying it is, yes, it's insane, by the way, it is mental, then the following statements do apply. And from a long time ago, a very short statement which says, you are all mind stuff. Not just the people, but all the objects. Every object is actually composed out of thoughts, right? When you construct a house, for example, It's constructed in your mind first, and then you proceed to the material realm, which is just an outsourcing the mental realm. And then from a professor of physics and astronomy, a quantum physics expert, he says, get over it and accept the inarguable conclusion. The universe is immaterial, mental, and spiritual. Right? So that's the highest levels of quantum physics today. It's saying this is not a material universe. Right? It's agreeing with all the stuff that I've researched for several decades now.
Slow to get it.
Yeah, well, you know, at last, maybe science is starting to catch up, but it's still way behind. Yeah. But even Nikola Tesla said, the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than all the previous centuries of its existence. And what I'm saying is it still hasn't done that. We still haven't gone to the path of spiritual science. That's the middle one on the screen there. And it appears to me that the freedom groups of today, the law groups, the your place groups, it's not my place, that's for sure. They're just too busy with material matters. And it's kind of paradoxical. And what they're attempting to do, and they're doing a marvelous job on it, is validate themselves as five-dimensional beings, but on two-dimensional paper. Right? They're using two-dimensional paper to say, I am a living being. Well, we know that. Why do you need to put it on a bit of paper? But it's okay. I mean, I'm very impressed with some of the documentation that I've seen, like claims of right, affidavits of truth. There's even a soul affidavit of truth, power of attorney stuff. Very, very powerful documentation. But in the end, it's not necessary. You know, and it's actually holding you back because you're saying, oh, that validates me. Well, why do you need that? It's kind of necessary. Yeah, it's kind of necessary. So, you know, I applaud their efforts.
It's a good stepping stone.
Sorry?
It's a good stepping stone.
It's a stepping stone.
Because you educate the uninitiated
Yes.
and the people that are completely way off in the other paradigm.
Yeah, it's where we must.
That's right. It's a slow process. And that's why we're saying you can't relax yet. If we're going to bring on a golden age, we still have a lot of work to do. Right? We nearly went through Armageddon catastrophe and they cancelled it. There was a sole decision made to not go through that. And I can back that up with a lot of information. But anyway, let's move on. What I said here is all oppression is actually based on illusion. I'm sure you'd agree with that.
It's a broad, very
They tell you lies. They tell you that they've got the authority and you have to pay.
Oh, is that what?
Yeah, it's
it's
not true.
And then rely on them.
But if you judge or oppose or fight the illusion, it gives it reality. It makes it real. You know, why would something which is an illusion have power? It can't have power unless you give it to it. And that's when you give it jurisdiction, when you fight it.
What about some more like esoteric things, like, I don't know, millimeter wave technology or something like that?
Is it damaging to life?
It's damaging to life.
Yeah.
And you didn't ask for it.
Well, I agree with you. It is damaging to life because of the beliefs that we've got. If you can vibrate higher, maybe it's not damaging to life.
Yeah.
But, you know,
With that.
yeah, we're not there.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah, and so we still have to do these material things. You know, so I'm not anti doing that. You know, but I'm saying that as we get more and more involved, it's not necessary.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. In the end, you'll find that inner peace is probably the most powerful tool to overturn tyrants. For by definition, all illusions are petty. They are petty. There's no other word for it. In fact, I've done workshops based on that. Carlos Castaneda's Petty Tyrant workshop. What the shamans say is that tyrants teach us detachment, right? So they're serving a purpose. Yeah, the Dan Andrews of the world we can be grateful to them because they're serving a purpose. They're showing us who we are, and they're exposing our beliefs. But what they do say, the shamans do say, if you don't have a petty tyrant in your life, go out and find one, because it's the fastest way for you to evolve. Right? And I've had petty tyrants in my life, so I'm not just talking it from theory. This has been my experience. I had to use the tools. This is decades ago, in order to survive.
Even the council's a petty tyrant, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
them,
Yes,
yeah.
even the council. Yeah. Anybody that thinks they've got authority over you is a petty tyrant, right? You can even have a petty tyrant in a relationship, close relationship.
Yeah.
You get on each other's nerves.
Oh, I know.
Okay. And you're not doing it for self-gain. You're not doing it for revenge, but it's a service to spirit, because when you've got people like that out of control, they've got to be brought down. Otherwise, we don't progress as a species. And it's the most powerful way for you, according to the shamans, is to evolve. Yeah, that's the spiritual science video, which you can look up on. The easiest way to find it is go to Magpie House and find the important videos link. It's right at the top. And then spiritual science 2 is a much longer presentation on the same topic. And then we've got the income tax as well. And this is a source of information that I was guided to 40 years ago, Mind Over Matter. And it still ranks amongst the highest information I've ever come across. How did I discover that?
Yeah.
I'd just been through a uni or RMIT and finished all my exams. I was in the workforce, and we used to read a lot of Picks and Post magazines at work, right? Just for fun.
Yeah.
And I was reading one day, and there was a review of this book. It was written by a couple in South Australia. And one of the chapters shows you the process of subconscious writing. It's not automatic writing, but there's a process where you can ask your subconscious mind any question and it will give you a very powerful answer, right? So I've done some of this. I was channeling the Akashic Records from the Akashic Records Masters, and I've used it in various yoga scenarios sometimes, and people get some interesting answers. And I thought to myself, this would be a great way to pass exams. So I rushed out and bought the book, and it blew my mind. It literally blew my mind. And 40 years later, it's still blowing my mind.
Yeah.
And it's, to me, the way I'm putting it out now is I call it basic metaphysics. It's something that we can all be taught in schools, and virtually zero amount of that is in schools. And you won't find this book online anywhere. It's out of print.
Does it correspond with like the quantum field type of perspective?
It goes into an incredible range of subjects. I've done a full study group information on it. And I have used it in a study group for a couple of years, but the potential there is to expand it much greater than what I'm using it. I've been using it so far. There are just a couple from South Australia.
Yes, their background.
They do describe some of their background, and I found some information about them. They promised to do another book, but they never did. I wanted to contact them. And, I tried to contact them, and I couldn't find them.
I just thought there might be
According to the information, they're on the last lifetime of the cosmic wheel, because they're very advanced beings. And
are they still around?
Yeah, they would still be around. Yeah,
That'd be interesting.
It'd be interesting to contact them, but anyway.
So you've got this physical copy of this book?
Yes, or I could possibly contact the publishers, but there's privacy issues there.
Do you think they're real people?
Take it as you feel, right? The spiritual masters of any age always say it's the message that's important, not the messenger.
Yeah. But
right? So you don't know if these people exist. You don't know whether Don Juan of the Castaneda books exist.
Yep.
You don't know if Anastasia of the Ringing Cedars books exist.
Yeah.
You don't know if the Theubans exist, right? You don't know if Jesus
Well, what do you
existed.
just believe anything?
It doesn't matter if they exist or not. If the information resonates with you, what else matters?
Does Anastasia,
No, you don't know.
do
That's
we
right.
exist?
But it doesn't matter. It's the information which is important. I'm going to mention this book because there's a very powerful quote in here about the hydrogen economy. What it says, try not to judge it because it's a little bit otherworldly. What it says is one of the principal pollutants on Earth is the petrol-driven engine. And this could be replaced immediately with a hydrogen engine that would cause no pollution, so to speak. On certain planets, this is called the clean motor. Prototypes for such an engine have been constructed by various engineers on your planet, but they must be industrially manufactured in order to replace petrol engines. Not only would this measure mean a 70% reduction in current levels of pollution by combustion waste, but it would also be more economical for consumers. That's a very powerful quote, which comes from a book that was published more than 30 years ago. It gave us the solution to our problems 30 years ago. And we're still, limping along, trying to get to the golden age. We haven't reached that point yet. Well, what I said is it human arrogance that rejects what may be vastly beneficial to mankind? A big mistake may be that we're making as a species we're ignoring off-planet and higher dimensional advice. And that's the very reason why the off-planet beings refuse to reveal themselves at this stage. We're just too arrogant, and it's not surprising. We're a very young race and we're on that threshold where we can either awaken or destroy ourselves or become malevolent, a deadly species with super technological powers, but it's not for the common good. That's where we are right now. So both corporations and government may be terrified of the prospects of clean energy, devastating enormous profits and taxes in that order. Because that's what this will do. It will devastate the profits and the taxes from all the fuel. Close to half the cost of your filling up your petrol tank at the moment is the fuel tax. It is, yeah. But it is dirty as well. So we need to make a change. It comes back to money at this stage. And similarly, the massive deployment of nuclear energy power and all its costs, its waste and extraction and refinement and weapons potential, they satiate the funding for only particular interest groups, and not for the general good, from what I can tell. These are some of the unrestrained, crazy technological experiments. Another example of that is climate engineering. The technophiles have a lot of fun fiddling with the atmosphere, but it's not doing us any good. Even Oppenheimer raised a small likelihood, you know who Oppenheimer is, developed the nuclear bomb. He had the small likelihood that an uncontrolled chain reaction could not be contained and thereby consume the entire planet. And guess what? He went ahead and built the bomb anyway. But he said, it's not very likely. If you watch the Oppenheimer movie, it talks about that. Yeah. I've got a more or less a final conclusion on this, what I've presented. Let us not be seduced and mesmerized with tunnel vision on a technology which would need to be dismantled anyway due to multiple toxicity issues. In the meantime, small-scale nuclear may provide a temporary stopgap measure toward clean, localized, non-burning solutions where many of these already exist. When I did distribute this information earlier this year on Telegram, I was challenged with the idea of thorium. You've heard about thorium? People are saying it's vastly superior to uranium.
Of thorium.
Yeah, thorium. Oh, here's a nice little diagram of hydrogen cars as of late. There's many of them. And a hydrogen engine is very simple compared to the internal combustion engine. Well, there will be a battery in there, but it's using a converter, a fuel cell converter. It converts the hydrogen into electricity, and that's used directly into an electric motor.
As long as it doesn't explode.
No, lithium.
Lithium, yes, lithium, because it's got such dense energy density, it's dangerous. You know, if it's not controlled properly, it can explode, and you won't be able to put it out.
There's a project for you, you can design a safe one.
These have been designed decades ago.
Oh, they're already in.
They're already here, right? But we need the fuel source and we need the infrastructure in order to make it easy for people to refuel their cars. It'll happen, you know, if we have the will to explore these other technologies.
I just don't get, maybe it's because I'm not technically minded, but I just don't get a fuel cell technology over using hydrogen with an internal combustion.
You can do it by burning the hydrogen,
Yeah.
right?
Like if there's heaps of it around, what do you do this fancy schmancy fuel cells?
Well, if you're burning hydrogen, the product is almost completely just water,
Yeah.
right? However, you're still burning something. It still requires high temperature. And because there's also nitrogen in the air, you'll probably get nitrous oxides out of it as well, but not anywhere near the pollution that oil gives us. So you can do it. The disadvantage of fuel cell, you lose 50% of the efficiency immediately by going fuel cell.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter, right? If you do the calculation, there's some of these cars.
2 hours, George.
Thank you. The Mirai travels 1,360 kilometres on a single run. Well, you know, that's better than a petrol car. I'm making the assumption that they're all fuel cell vehicles because there's big advantages going fuel cell rather than burning, even though you lose the efficiency. It's very mature technology.
Yeah.
It's been around for a long time, and it's been shown to be very safe. We've had a lot of fun with hydrocarbons.
Yeah.
You know, one litre of petrol is equivalent to 100 men working 24 hours. That's only 1 litre of, you know, a little bit more than what my cup holds.
Yeah.
And that's got enough energy equivalent to 100 men working for a whole day, 24 hours. And so we've become addicted to energy. And nuclear is way above that as well, right? But it's kind of dangerous. Well, thorium is supposed to be the panacea, but I won't spend much time on this. I'll just read you some of the information on thorium reactors. And it says, people make it out to be some sort of miracle reactor. It's not. It's mostly a pipe dream. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Disadvantages are it does not fission on its own. You have to have either to put weapons-grade uranium in it or blast it with some sort of accelerator or something. So you're creating a nuclear bomb anyway, just to fire up the thorium, right? It creates less energy and is less economic than traditional reactors, which already struggle to compete on the open market. It creates the mixed waste stream that is very difficult to dispose of. It won't melt down, but it can leak. it's got most of the disadvantages of conventional nuclear power, but is less cost effective. So I think we could put thorium, even though a lot of people are excited about it, in the too hard basket. That's what I feel. There's a comparison on this diagram showing the differences between thorium, coal, oil, natural gas, and uranium. Sounds very promising, but it's all talk. All right, so I've gone over the 2 hours, and there's a heap more information I'd like to share, but it won't be done tonight. So if you like, we'll go into the Q&A. I'm just going to go to the bathroom, or you can get something to eat. We can have the Q&A out there. It's cold.
Too cold out there.
Have a cup of tea.
Yeah,
Would you have any questions?
How many tons did you say? How many tons of nuclear waste are there currently?
250,000 tonnes worldwide.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's right, and they don't know what to do with it. You know, I went through quite a number of articles, and a lot of them talk up nuclear power and they say how wonderful it is, and there are parameters which you could call wonderful, but a lot of them also say they haven't dealt with the nuclear waste side of things anyway.
And how many tons does a nuclear reactor produce per annum, like generally per annum?
How much does it consume?
How much waste does it produce?
It's not a lot. It's it might be, I'm not quite sure of this, but it might be a canister that large over a certain period of time. And I'm not sure what that period of time is.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's accumulated a lot. You know, there's that's what they're saying, 250,000 tonnes. Yeah, they're talking about all sorts of ways to store it, and none of them are terribly satisfactory.
Now Europe has, they haven't got a solution.
They haven't got one?
No.
I don't know.
So
I've
we
heard
take
about.
waste here in Australia.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they want to bring it to Australia.
Oh,
Hey.
Oh, down under.
Nothing for them.
Well, part of the early part of the presentation was talking about how our reality is not material, physical, it's mental, spiritual. And our reality is actually only limited by our imagination. Right? Just think about that. You know, if reality is only limited by imagination, and if the collective starts to imagine a solution, it will happen.
Okay. Just imagine it.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that goes against what the materialists think. Right? That's why they don't want to hear this message.
Yeah, because there's too many of them compared to the spiritualists.
Well, it's changing. You know.
Yeah, it's tough.
But we've got to have a viable solution to imagine.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
George has presented a couple.
I've given
Go
you
on, George.
several tonight, and we just have to do something with it, right? There's other information which comes from the Ringing Cedars, Anastasia, and it says what Anastasia says, because there was a lot of stuff appearing on the internet about Nibiru and the second sun and all this sort of thing, and what she said was, if enough people imagine there is a second sun, it will appear.
It will appear, yeah.
That's how we can affect our reality. It goes further than that. It says all the storms, all the cataclysmic events, the earthquakes and everything depend on consciousness. If the consciousness is low, those things might happen. If the consciousness goes up, they will be prevented from happening.
Isn't that what they say happened to the Atlanteans, that their consciousness descended, and therefore they were obliterated, Atlantis?
Something like that.
Isn't that what they
Yeah, the Lemurian race, the Atlantean race, they actually knew that their civilization was going to be destroyed because the greed and the corruption took over. And a lot of that Atlantean energy is happening now. It's kind of reincarnated into this time. And we came very, very close to total annihilation back in the 90s. So it was, the information I've got is telling me that mankind was a failed experiment. They were about to pull the plug.
Who's that?
The spirit world.
So why in the 90s?
Sorry?
Why in the 90s was it a critical time?
The Armageddon is prophesized. It's in the Bible. It's in other ancient texts as well. But it's also in more modern contexts as well. The indigenous people from around the world were aware that there was going to be a cataclysmic event.
Wasn't that meant to be 2012 or something?
Sorry?
The 2012 thing?
2012 was supposed to be a marker that we got through, right? But the cataclysms were supposed to happen in the early 1990s. And according to the information, we made a collective decision at a soul level, you know, not at the material level, because we don't have access, you know, at the material level. So your soul, my soul, the collective souls said, no, we want to keep this experiment going, because that's what it is. You know, if you look at the suffering that occurred the last century, in the 20th century, the suffering was horrible. And if you go back about 30 centuries, the suffering was pretty awful as well. And so that's why they were saying, this isn't working out, we're going to pull the plug, right? But there were certain events which occurred which helped to turn that around. And it was triggered through the harmonic convergence of 1987. And the material that I was accessing in the 1980s, that changed the way I operated with the world as well. You know, I started meditating on healing the earth, and probably millions of people were doing the same.
Oh, you know, we realised. So, you know, maybe it's that.
But it does, to me, it seemed like it was a real sudden thing, like it was like in the last 15 years. Yeah, like it was slowly happening and then bang, it was like really different.
Well, there could be a lot of geoengineering going on.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Do you know much about the ozone layer theory and all that?
Well, we lost a lot of the ozone through fluorocarbons that were being ejected into the atmosphere. And that, you could say that was a success story, because the world decided to change the propellants, you know, from a spray can and other industries.
Yeah.
And they eliminated the fluorocarbons, even in refrigerators. And they came up with a better formula. And that then appears to have replenished the ozone layer.
Oh, it's growing back.
Sorry?
The hole's growing back.
It might have come back. Yeah.
It's still the biggest hole is over Tasmania.
It could be. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah.
No, apparently it's grown back.
The hole's growing back.
Apparently, yeah, it's healed over. Yep.
Okay.
So does that mean all the radiation from the sun is much stronger?
Yeah, if the sun starts doing something different, whether it dims or becomes hotter, it will have a dramatic effect on Earth.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, it's been very stable in the last 6,000-7,000 years. But, you know, space can be a dangerous place. You know, they're talking about, you know, Nibiru spinning back through space and coming out again. If you look at the archaics information, there's a very strong following of archaics, and I've only had a brief look at it, and what this researcher has shown is that there's a cycle happening, and it seems to be about 139 years, if I remember. And on those 139 years timelines is when catastrophic events can happen, right? But they don't have to be terribly severe. They can be really minor, where you can't even notice anything. That's what I'm observing of it. It depends on the consciousness of the planet at the time. You know, if the consciousness elevates, then the nasty things that could happen are prevented, right? Because we think we're the only life on the planet in existence, I should say. But it's very obvious from all the work that we've done that there are high dimensional beings that look after us. They look after the planet, and they will stop. For example, they will stop a meteor smashing into the Earth if it doesn't suit the purposes.
Well, don't they reckon that they've intervened?
Sorry?
Don't they reckon that they've intervened and deactivated nuclear missiles that were going to go off?
Yeah, there is. We've presented a fair bit of material on that very subject, where the nuclear silos in the US, they can shoot an intercontinental ballistic missile to Russia or whatever, wherever it's going. But those silos shut down, and they never figured out how they shut down. They operate independently. Deliberately, they're not connected to each other. And then that one stopped working, 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 and they've never figured out why that happened, right? They've actually got some footage which they recorded of lasers changing what those missiles can do. I've shown it here. The Disclosure Project, which is, some of the movies we played here almost 20 years ago about how disclosure shows a lot of that information, and how the military in that disclosure, they were invited to a press club to talk about that, and they did.
Yeah, there was that guy, that doctor.
Stephen Greer.
Yes, Dr. Stephen Greer.
Yeah. It might be his imagination, but it's very compelling information.
Yeah, all those nuclear power or missile launching bases with nuclear warheads didn't work at the same time. Something's going on.
That's right. Yeah.
And they're not connected. Something's maybe it's upstairs.
Yeah, this is the problem with human arrogance. The ones that think they know it all are the ones that are most stupid. Maybe I'm talking about myself. Who knows?
You're a researcher, aren't you?
A what?
A researcher.
Well, I've always had that tendency to examine what goes on in the real world. Call it the real world, and it's not even real.
You'd have to be a researcher to be able to do it. You've got to dig deep.
Well, I haven't managed to walk through a wall, but the information is telling us that you can do that, right, if you change your own vibration. And one of the experiments we did in this very room, close to 20 years ago, was we placed two guitars, one on the that corner over there, another one that corner, and you pluck the string on one guitar, and if that guitar is tuned to this one, then that one vibrates as well. But if you change the tuning just a little amount, you can pluck this one so hard and that one will never be affected.
It's
Right.
like a radio. You have
It-
a radio over there and a radio.
Yeah,
over
radio waves are the same.
there. And you put the radio on 91.5 here, and if you tune that one to that one, it'll play the same.
That's right. Yeah.
But change it a little bit.
Yeah, if you look at the
91.2 or whatever.
if you look at the radio spectrum, right, all the channels exist on the radio spectrum, don't they? But you have to tune into it, right? Imagine if if the tuning failed and all the channels would be there all at once, it'd be a bloody mess, right? It doesn't work very well, and so you have to tune into it. And the conclusion I made maybe 25, 30 years ago was that matter is the same because it's also energy, right? And you can tune into a matter vibration, right? But if you change your vibration, that's when you can walk through a wall. A lot of this stuff is, or some of it is in the Celestine prophecy, even though that's a book of fiction, right? And the author was amazed that so many people thought it was something good. But anyway, it's got those sort of concepts, and it was it was very popular around the world.
Yeah, that frequency, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to lose your train of thought there, but that frequency and that tuning thing you're talking about, can't you make an analogy to what's happening in the world if we're all pick like a timeline? So we tune in to a good timeline, and we might have certain bandwidths might be negative outcomes,
Yes.
negative timelines.
Precisely.
So
The reason why the book of Revelation is so confusing is because it's got both Golden Age and Armageddon, and they both exist.
yeah,
Right? It's up to us to choose which timeline we go down. It's got all the scenarios in between as well.
but yeah, you need to tell that to a few
Sorry?
Christians. There's a lot of Christians that haven't quite gotten onto that concept.
No, I don't hear any sensible information from that. Yeah, it's got all the different timelines,
Yeah.
and it's up to us as a collective to choose which one we're going to go down. Yeah, because when somebody prophesies the future, it's not the future; it's only a probability.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like astrology,
a what?
astrology just indicates a propensity of events rather than predicting for certain.
Yeah, the metaphysics says about astrology is the human will is more powerful than astrology.
Well, it's like when you go to a medium, you say, oh, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to get divorced, it's going to be messy, blah, blah, blah. That's only one possibility.
Yeah, you don't have to be governed by the stars.
Going to be the truth.
Have you heard any information about new prophecies about, the 1% ruling the world and taking everything over and controlling everything?
Have I heard of it?
Like, no, I know you've heard of that, but have you heard how that's going to be phased out or anything?
It'll happen naturally once the consciousness sweeps through the population, right? And once that happens, you cannot have that situation happening anymore. It just won't exist.
So I had the COVID idea. The COVID was one of their ideas, but this consciousness is going to be more successful. So COVID didn't have its way, like it was supposed to, but this consciousness is like a wave, isn't it?
COVID was not a virus, it was a belief.
Yeah, yeah,
That's all it was.
yeah. I was there from right from the start.
Yeah. Yeah, there is such a thing as coronavirus, you know, but you have to go back to the 1960s.
Yeah.
That's where it came from. And unbelievable what happened. You know, we had shopkeepers here that were terrified of this coronavirus. I'm saying to them, it's a lot of bullshit. And they wouldn't believe me. I even had yoga students having a go at me for saying, you know, coronavirus doesn't really exist the way you think it is. You know, what they're telling you. It's a lot of rubbish.
Sorry, George, but with the shopkeepers, they were frightened that they would be shut down more often than not, and lose their position, lose their jobs. Because it did happen. It happened a lot. A lot of businesses folded, you know, because the corona police came out, you know, and all this sort of rubbish. And that's terrified them, you know, because they've got mortgages and they've got bills, and they're going to keep coming. The banks aren't going to say, oh, poor bugger, he's shut down. Well, let's give him, you know, 2 or 3 years leeway without any, you don't have to pay for it. Banks are greedy money.
So what's the initials of fear represent?
Yeah, false evidence appearing real.
Yeah, false evidence appearing real. And you can turn it into a positive by saying,
Feeling excited and ready.
sorry? Feeling excited and ready. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So again, it's all perception.
That's the fear that actors and singers get. It's just before they enter the stage. They're all terrified. They can't talk. They've got their lines and everything.
Yeah, stage fright.
Yeah, but they can't wait to get out. That's their fear.
So should we call it a day or a night?
Did we get our answers?
Sorry?
Questions answered.
Oh, right. You've still got another question?
Well,
You better be quick.
the one about the better be quick. The one about the 6 out of 10 people.
Pardon?
The 6 out of 10 people
Yeah.
that wanted nuclear power in Australia.
That was a Herald Sun news poll.
Oh, what?
So it was dragged out of the air. That figure was dragged out of the air.
Exactly what this book
George,
says.
you're casting aspersions on all your references now.
Overreactions. People overreact and they say how terrible the world is. It's not that bad. It's actually pretty good. And it's getting better rapidly. Yeah.
So why do you move up north then?
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah.
Well, my only question is, I wouldn't mind, I wouldn't mind at least some of the notes and like even an email or access somehow to the name of that book, the couple from.
Oh, the Mind Over Matter one.
Yeah.
You can't get it anymore.
Yeah, well, I'll find it.
Oh, good.
Go for it.
Dude. Everybody knows how you got it.
Got to be out there somewhere. Sure, we can go back on the Wayback Machine on the internet and find where it is.
Yeah, look, my
Wayback Machine.
own book is falling apart.
Oh, Peabody.
Anyway.